Hi, I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. We talk about the stock market here all the time. We get into a lot of particulars. We do a podcast, obviously, every Sunday that wraps up the stock market's entire movers and shakers and all the good news from the entire week. But on this side of the camera, on my side of the camera, and with my partner here that you've seen before, my editor Anthony, we do have a lot of conversations between the two of us about success on a much more macro level and on a micro level on topics that don't really pertain to the stock market. So when we talk about that, it's one of the vehicles that we use, but it's not the end all and be all of things. So we ended up having a conversation, me and Anthony, a couple of days ago that got on a topic that really started to utilize a lot of theory, right? So, and we actually combined a couple of theories together, and I've heard it played out somewhat this way before, but I'm going to try to use it in a demonstration sort of way. So this is much like the agenda video we've done, or the Pareto video, or we're going to do a video on Pomodoro studying. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that's just more theory on being successful and the behavior patterns behind being successful than necessarily what you specifically need to do. So two different ideas combined kind of into one idea. So bear with me here. So I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown, like I was saying. So what we're going to talk about is how you move up in the world. How exactly does it work? Anthony was like, what do you do? You start at the very bottom. You have nothing. You know no one. Where do you make that initial commitment? How do you go ahead and do things? Well, the first thing you're going to have to realize is if you're starting at the very bottom, and by the bottom, I don't mean that you have no money. By the bottom, I mean that you have no connections, because connections are much more important than money. Because if you know people who can expediently move you from one position to another in your quality of life, you're only one step away from having that actually take place, which is you capitalizing on those opportunities. If on the other end, you are very resourceful and intelligent, you have a lot of things about your character that are strong, but you don't have anywhere that you can express that energy, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to sow your wild oats in that field, unfortunately. And that takes a little bit of time, because what that takes is relationship building. So the first thing you're going to do is whatever career you've chosen, whatever path you're going on, and then on your spare time as well, you're going to have to go and meet people. Just meet people. You have to foster relationships. The only way to move your way up the ladder is to foster a lot of relationships that span out a nice breadth of different skill sets and job titles and age groups, you name it, because every time you touch into something different, you open up a whole new world of opportunities. When you're starting at the very bottom, the only way that you can move to the next level is to branch out. And as you branch out, what you're going to find is the opportunities do start to become more pronounced. They're out there, but a lot of them can be time traps. They're opportunities that come up to do things that are not like expediently moving you towards your goal. And what you'll realize as you practice this networking, which you're going to have to do, and you do on any level that you want, but the more successful people, the higher level of success that you measure, you're always going to see those people manage large groups of people, major businesses, and they have no problem holding multiple interpersonal relationships on a day-to-day basis, contact all the time. They know how to do this because they've refined the skill of doing it. So again, what you're going to find on this level as you're just starting out is that a lot of the people are on the same level as you. They don't offer a whole lot of potential. There's not a lot of growth there. You want to become you want to become the smartest person in the room, and then you want to change the room quite quickly. You want to move on, because when you're all here, when everybody's here, there's no room for any kind of vertical movement. We're all moving horizontally, but because the people up here don't deal down here very often. And when they do, it's very difficult for you to build a relationship with them. Like, you're going to have interactions, but a good majority of interactions are going to happen on a much smaller scale. So a lot of people guard their ego and want to remain the smartest person that they know instead of going out and doing things like finding mentors and finding people more successful or smarter than them, higher education levels than them, that they can then glean something off. Humble themselves and realize that smarter people are going to bring you to the promised land ultimately if you surround yourself with enough of them and take in the information the way it's meant to be taken in. Don't take it personally that people are more successful than you. That's going to happen on any level that you get to. Please concern yourself with yourself, but take this in. So as you've decided to branch out and do the networking, you're going to have to move vertically inside the job or career path that you've chosen. Why, you ask? Because you need to meet these people, and you need to meet them on a much more expedient, I go back to that word, but you need to do this on a much quicker basis. This is going to be a lot more beneficial to an 18-year-old than it's going to be beneficial to a 45-year-old. Unless the 45-year-old has a lot of these connections already built into things. Because you're going to want to move vertical in the job that you're in, the career path that you've chosen, so that you can get to that next hierarchy. Because what's going to happen then is you're then going to start touching bases with people across that same hierarchy. And it allows you to meet people and branch out on a much more broad level with people that have a lot more opportunity that you can put into practice for yourself. It doesn't make a difference what you do for a living. It just makes a difference that you make your way up that level in your personal life and in your professional life, so that the more networking that you do, the more people that you meet, the more odds you have of meeting people that are successful, not juicing them. You're not meeting them that day and then asking them for a job or a favor a week from now. You are ultimately fostering friendships with people, but you're being the proactive one who has to go out and make these approaches. You have to find yourself in the situation to meet these people. If you're starting on the bottom, there is no way to move up. Without ridiculous luck, you need some type of connections. There's a reason why people go to Toastmasters or any of these other places that try to foster a networking environment. The only problem is those environments a lot of the time are rife with people who are desperate. And desperate is ugly. Nobody wants to see someone with no confidence. You want to go out there and meet people on your own accord. That's your job. Because anything that you're going to do in regards of being successful is going to have you taking control of what you're doing. So the theory is if you're starting on the bottom, the networking is great, but the problem is you move across horizontally, and very few people have opportunity that branch you out, break that glass ceiling and move you higher to the next level where you're ultimately looking to go. But as you learn to do that here and also practice networking on a much more deep level, of a personal level, where you're purposefully trying to meet people that go to that next step, and you're also working inside your career path to move that further up the ladder, so that your hierarchy of interactions inside your place of employment becomes a higher status level of interactions. You may find yourself getting invited to different parties or celebrations or whatever it ends up being, where there's management interaction that you wouldn't have had otherwise. There's a lot of people, when I say it doesn't pertain to 40-year-olds, I mean it when I talk about the original portion. It's very difficult for a bunch of 40-year-olds, sorry to say, I'm creeping on 40 with you, bro. It's difficult for a bunch of 40-year-olds to go out and foster these same relationships. It's not as difficult for a 20-year-old, but a 40-year-old out there might be watching this video and thinking, I have a lot of that already. I already have a job where I interact with management, and I've interacted with people in management positions or in high positions across a bunch of different companies or a bunch of different sectors or positions because of what I do. Well, you don't realize that you've built all these relationships. You might be able to utilize those relationships to navigate your prosperity, your future, the way you see things going, in a much more fruitful manner than you actually thought of it. It might actually exist in a much more tangible universe where you can go out and use the connections that you've made Again, you're not juicing people. This is not the idea. You've built these relationships because people like dealing with you, and why wouldn't they? You're somebody who clearly is invested in trying to be a better person. Why wouldn't people want to surround themselves with you? So you've fostered these relationships. You might find that moving horizontally across that next hierarchy that you're on right now might offer an opportunity of a career that not only pays the bills for you, which is what we're trying to get to ultimately no matter what, whether you're starting on the bottom or you're already on that next level and you can move laterally. What we want you to do is find a career or the amount of time that you invest to pay your bills. We want you to do that with something that rewards you the most that it possibly can. Something that, if you have the choice, you might just do it for free if you had enough money to just do nothing. And the more opportunity on the higher hierarchies that you get to move laterally, the more opportunity you're going to have to be able to choose a career path that's more to your liking and still be able to pay you, to be able to feed your family, not start where you're playing a violin by a bus stop with your violin case open. You know, like you may be a violinist who's been working at their job or working at their craft for a long time, but doing it on a private level. You find yourself networking properly, and you may find yourself making inroads into a community that you thought otherwise, unless you were a professional of the most highfalutin esteem, that you're not going to be accepted. It's going to be about your networking ability. It's going to be about how you can make friends and influence people. Dale Carnegie, shout out for real. That book has been what it is for a long period of time, because that's what's going to move you up. But ultimately, when you've moved up and you have a whole bunch of different options at a new level, because a lot of the people you surround yourself with or have contact with or build relationships with are of a higher status. And we're not knocking people that aren't. We're just saying we're all working up this same ladder here. So when you get to that level and you have the ability to use those people, again, it sounds terrible when I say it, but don't let me say use these people and you think that I'm saying you're taking advantage of them. But you use the opportunities that you're presented with to make your life better. So that was a conversation me and Anthony had, was how do you become more successful? You don't know anybody. You don't have anywhere to start, not a pot to piss in. What do you do, my friend? Well, the answer is you go right ahead and you start meeting people. You start shaking hands and kissing babies and running for president, whatever you got to do to get yourself out there, get a little bit of confidence, push your chest out, whatever you got to do. Go out there, let your nuts swing, meet some people. Be nice, be yourself. You're probably a very enjoyable person, but the more you stay hunkered down in the life that you're already living and don't branch out and do what you have to do, the less opportunity is going to come around. It's not going to come and knock on your door, silly. You already know that. Well, there you have it. There was a conversation that didn't have anything to do with the stock market, but something that I thought was very, very interesting. I took a little bit of the moving laterally on the hierarchy side from Jordan Peterson, who obviously is a psychologist up here in Canada, a very prominent psychologist, obviously all around the world. I thought that was a very interesting analogy that he made, just that when you do get to that next level, that there is the ability to then move around laterally a lot easier at a much higher pay grade, and then obviously lumping that in with what is, I think, a predominantly well-known theory of network, and work really hard at what you do and move up as quick as you possibly can as the get out of the absolute bottom ground and move yourself up into upper middle class. I think both of those two things end up conjoining very, very well and becoming a very practical idea. But again, the ability to play it out is a lifetime process, but obviously takes years to get started properly. There you have it. I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. We took a little bit of a sidetrack today and looked at a little bit of practical theory, I guess you'd say. Let's put it into use, and we'll all come back here 10 years from now and see just how well it's working for us. I thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day.